Hey, this is Jason Falls.
Hey, this is Mari Smith.
Hey everybody, this is CC Chapman.
Hey, this is Jason Keith.
Michael Stelzner here.
Hi there, I'm Rand Fishkin.
Hey, this is John Jantz.
Hey, it's Jay Bear.
Hey, this is Brian Solis.
Hi, this is David Wells, and you're watching Inbound Now with... Hi, this is Seth Godin, and you're watching Inbound Now with David Wells.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Inbound Now. I have a very special guest with me here today, Mr. Derek Halpern of socialtriggers.com. He blends together psychology and marketing together to help people increase website conversions. And I love his blog, and he also has a podcast as well, which I'm sure we'll dive into on the show. Welcome to the show, Derek.
Dude, what's up? Thanks for having me. Really pumped to be here.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to get you on the show to basically dive into everything website and blog conversions, because it's one of the biggest problems that businesses have, right? You know, everyone knows that creating content brings in website visitors into the site, but actually converting those into leads and customers, that's where sometimes businesses fall short, and I know you're the expert there.
So actually, you want to know what's really funny? A lot of people think they have conversion problems, but that's not always the case. It's not usually a conversion problem. Most people don't have conversion problems, actually. Most people have a traffic problem. You know, a lot of people will say something like, I'm getting 1,000 hits per month, or I'm getting 2,000 hits per month, and they're like, I've got a conversion problem. Well, if you're getting 1,000 or 2,000 hits a month to a blog, and people, 1,000 to 2,000 hits reading content, that's not a conversion problem, that's a traffic problem. Content doesn't really convert readers into sales necessarily that well, unless you're ranking for specific keywords, and those 1,000 visitors are highly targeted traffic, Like if you're ranked, like let's say you get a visitor reaching out for how to buy this WordPress plugin, insert your product here, right? If you have that kind of traffic, that traffic will convert a little bit better. But if you're just updating a blog and you're getting 1,000 to 2,000 hits, you're probably not going to get very many sales. So, that said, I want to clarify the difference between a traffic problem and a conversion problem. If your blog is getting less than 5,000 hits a month, you probably have a traffic problem. If it's getting more than 5,000 hits per month, then you have a conversion problem.
Gotcha. So you're saying that they should focus on that traffic first and
Yes.
build that up? Interesting.
Absolutely. A lot of people start out right at the gate, They'll start their blog, they'll have 100 hits a day, they'll read articles about the importance of split testing. Now all of a sudden they'll run a split test. It'll take them 45 days to get a statistically significant split test because they don't have enough traffic going to their sales pages. You know what I mean?
Right.
So just to keep that in mind.
Interesting. So you're pretty methodical with the tests that you run and that you write about on your blog, right? So can you kind of run us through that process? How long do you run tests for, and what's statistically significant?
So I actually don't know how, I don't calculate what's statistically significant. I know with Visual Ops Website Optimizer, they'll say this is like a 96% chance to complete or whatever. Okay. I usually wait till the tool tells me it's statistically significant. I try to avoid math at all costs. Right. I'm not trying to do any math over here. But I usually like Visual Website Optimizer, and there's also Google Website Optimizer. Those two tools are great at determining statistical significance. And then the next part is, I guess, how do I decide what to test, right? So I always test the things that matter most to me. And right now, the thing that matters most to me is building an email list, mainly because as you build an email list, the more emails you have, the more sales you can make. It's really just it's that simple. There's a lot of social media experts out there that'll say social media is the answer, but no one got famous on social media. Most of the people who are using social media to drive business built their social media account because they had an email list or a website with a lot of traffic to send people over there. No one just logs on to Twitter, starts talking to people by sending app messages, and all of a sudden waking up one day being, an influencer. That's not how that works.
Right.
So
the common denominator still is that email list. And social obviously helps pull traffic in, but if you're not converting into that list, you're kind of dead in the water, right?
Well, social does help pull traffic in, and if you're not converting it into the list, you are dead in the water. But a lot of people will then take that phrase of social pulls in traffic, and they'll think to themselves, well, since I get traffic from Twitter, that means I should be on Twitter. That's not the case. You'll get traffic from Twitter whether you're on Twitter or off Twitter. People will share your content if it's good content on Twitter. You don't have to be there to share your content. So I just want to... So now if you actually go to socialtriggers.com, you'll notice that I don't link my social media profiles.
Gotcha,
You know why?
gotcha.
Because it doesn't get me any results. I could send an update to I've got 10,000 followers on Twitter. I'll send an update to them. I'll maybe get 50 clicks. Big deal. 50 clicks. I mean, even at a 2% conversion rate on sales pages, 50 clicks might be one sale. If I send an email update out to 10,000 people, you can bet on it that I'm generating at least 1,000 clicks.
Gotcha.
1,000
Okay.
clicks is how you run a business. 50 clicks is not how you run a business.
Right. Okay. So that's a kind of a controversial viewpoint, but it makes sense. You know, the email still is, you know, people are reading their email, and it's a better way to drive in traffic. You wrote another post on your blog that, you know, the content is king, myth debunked, where
Yeah.
you talk about, you know, how crucial it is that your website design actually, you know, back up what your site's about and having a good site design. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So especially in the social media space, again, I kind of got a chip on my shoulder for these social media gurus. I mean, some of them are great. I'm friends with a lot of them, and they know their stuff. But there's some of them that really don't know what they're talking about. And one person will say something like, the content is king. And you know what? Content is king. Like, good content gets traffic. It's true. But here's the deal. When people stumble on your site, in the first few seconds of that site, you're leaving a first impression on your visitor, right?
Yep.
And in that first impression, people either decide to trust you or distrust you. All right? Now, what determines the difference between trust and distrust? In that article, The Content is King, Myth Debunked, I quoted some research from Elizabeth Silence, and she had found that of the people who she tested between trust and distrust, people were more likely to distrust websites based on their web design, not their content. Before people even read the headline, they're leaving this first impression of, do I trust this person, do I distrust this person? And it's web design that matters there.
Gotcha. So if the site kind of looks like it's from 1996 and really crappy, is that really what turns people off, and they think that this isn't a legitimate business because they can't pay a designer, or, you know, they don't keep their, you know, room clean, as it were?
Yeah. So a good web design is very subjective, right?
Right.
But what she found is there were some threads of similarity between good web design and bad web design. And it wasn't so much about having an expensive design. It was just about having a current design. So it wasn't like, don't make your site look old, first. Second, a cluttered web design, it triggers distrust. Because when people land on a cluttered site, they're confused. If people are confused, they're not going to take action. They're not going to read your articles. Now, there was actually some rumors back in the day, like maybe 4 years ago, and it still persists today, where people say that cluttered web designs convert higher. And that's true. A cluttered web design does convert traffic into ad clicks, potentially at a higher rate. But the reason why that happens is because people are confused and they don't know where the content is, so they're clicking on ads by accident.
Right.
All right, so cluttered triggers distrust. There's a whole list of other things that triggers distrust that I call the 10 red flags of web design. And I use her research study to go over that. Now, another thing that triggered distrust was bad navigation. Like if people couldn't find what they wanted when they wanted, that was another reason why they would distrust a site. Now that kind of sounds funny to me because a lot of blog navigation is bogus. Like you'll stumble on a blog and what will you see in their navigation bar? You'll see home, about, contact us, all this stuff. But does that really matter? Do people care about that? No. People want to land on your site and know exactly what your site's all about instantly, you know? Right. So if you're not going to give what I call contextual navigation, where if on Social Triggers, again, I have links to a list building page or an increase online sales page, and that helps build the whole contextual navigation so people can stumble on my site and figure out exactly what my site's all about without really having to click around too much.
Gotcha. And so I saw an interview you did with Laura Roeder where you basically went through and did a site audit of her site, and you were talking about, grouping your content, different articles into content buckets. Is that what you're
Yep.
mentioning there?
Exactly. Content buckets, resource pages. I basically call it whatever I call it the day that I wake up. I'm bad at calling it the same thing. But it's essentially just grouping together maybe 5 or 6 articles in your archive and putting it on one, like not any articles, your best articles. Grouping together your 5 best articles in your archive and making it on one page where people could access that very easily. And just to go to socialtriggers.com and go to list building, you'll see where I group my 3 best list building articles. Now, this is important for a few reasons. Because if people stumble on your content page and they're looking for something else they can click on, you want to send them to your best content, right? You want to leave a good impression. So that's why you group all your best content up into this resource page. That way, if people click from a content page to a resource page, you're putting your best foot forward. You're not relying on your category page, which might be designed in such a way where your newest content comes up first. But your newest content isn't necessarily your best content.
Right. So another thing that you did on Social Triggers, you feature, the most popular posts, and you talk about removing that archives, and even the search box, right? So what was the thought process behind getting rid of search completely?
So man, I got a lot of flack for that search box, and I've ran a bunch of sites. Back in 2007, I had an entertainment blog. I think in 2007 that blog did like 30 million hits or 40 million hits. I got a ton of traffic, all right? Of those 30 or 40 million hits, almost no one used the blog search bar. And I started thinking to myself, why do I have a search bar on my blog? I put it there because I felt like I needed it. As a matter of fact, I was the only one who was probably using it when I was trying to do internal linking, to find articles I wanted to link to on my own site. And then I started testing not using the search bar. And I got like 1 or 2 complaints. But overall, no one even noticed it was gone. You know why? Because people don't go to blogs to search. People stumble on blogs from search engines. If they don't find what they want on that blog, then they go back to the search engine and research again. No one stumbles on your site. Oh, let me check out this article. Oh, wait a second. This article is not what I was looking for. Hold on. Let me type in their search bar. No, they press the back button and go search back to where they were just. They go back to Twitter. They go back to Google. They go back to Bing. They search there. They don't search your blog for anything.
Right. I think that's a dead on the spot where they'd go back to Google and search like whatever they're looking for and your site's name or something, and they're not. I mean, even WordPress search, it's not that great. You don't always find what you're looking for, and they'll go back to Google.
Exactly.
So also on your site, you have what you call a feature box, right, on the home page. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Why you have that on your home page and what it's there for?
So back last year, the feature box is kind of one of the things I became known for, the feature box. I made a mistake. My friend Marcus actually told me I should have called it the Halpern header because it would have been better for branding. But let me tell you a little bit about that. So back last year, I started promoting the importance of building an email list. And a lot of these social media people, dopes, for what I call them. I don't believe in social media people. And they started saying, well, I don't want to put a pop-up on my site. I was like, why do you want to put a pop-up on your site? More emails means you're going to get more readers. Not putting a pop-up on your site only means one thing, that people aren't going to subscribe to your blog where you're creating great content and then stumble on another blog where they'll put their email there. And that other blog might not be nearly as ethical as you. So you not putting a pop-up on your site is essentially sending readers to other sites where they might, have harm done upon them because you refrained from getting their email address. So I didn't try to change their behavior. You can't change people's minds. You can only show them a new way, right? So I didn't try to convince people to use a pop-up. I stumbled on the idea of a feature box. I was like, oh, just put a big opt-in form above the content, and it was converting really, really well. And for some reason, the social media people were cool with that. They were like, oh, that's not a pop-up. That's not that annoying, and it converts. Perfect. Best of both worlds. Now, I stumbled on that by accident because I actually was looking at Laura Roeder's site, and I noticed she had this big box at the top of her site, and it was just a homepage, essentially. She had a homepage opt-in.
Right.
And I thought, like, what if I put that big box on top of a blog design? And as I said, it's one of the main reasons why Social Triggers was able to grow so fast, because it converts great.
Gotcha. So what do you list in the feature box? Basically, what people are going to get when they subscribe, or?
Yeah. So That's actually an interesting question. I'll tell you why. When you look at your Google Analytics, you'll find that your content pages are your number one pages. Like not just any one piece of content, but just content pages as a whole. When people stumble on the content page, what do they do next? They'll either go to the home page or they'll click your about page, right? So you have to think about that. People are often reading your content first, then going to your home page. Very, very rarely do people go to your home page first and then explore your content. It happens, but you know what I'm saying. The content page is first, next page, home page. So you want that feature box then. You gotta know that people are reading that knowing that they just read one of your articles, right? So your feature box should contain some content where you're basically promising people more of what they want to learn about, right? Where I'm not saying that you're gonna, like, you don't have to be too specific. I think if you go to my site, I just simply say, hey, if you subscribe to Social Triggers, you're gonna learn how to turn traffic into leads and sales, how to get more traffic, and how to sell more stuff, right? That's all I say. But if they read a piece of my content first, then go to my homepage, chances are they want to know about that, which is why it converts.
Gotcha. So, and you also mentioned the About Us page, you know, the homepage and the About Us page. So, you know, in a lot of the stuff you've written and some of the site reviews that I've seen you do, you talk about on the About Us page having, you know, an opt-in form a couple times on that page, right? And you do it on the site. So what's the idea there?
It's one of your most visited pages. Might as well make it work for you as opposed to just losing subscribers. Like, why not?
Right.
Do you like emails on your list? I do.
I do as well. I'm actually going to implement that after this interview.
Nice.
So with pop-ups and people being against, you know, lightbox pop-ups or what have you, I mean, they convert though. So what like why? So why don't people do them? Or would you recommend, have you done any testing with like slide-ins from the bottom of the screen where they come up, you know, something like that? Have you done any testing around that?
Yeah, so if you go to a Social Triggers content page, you'll notice I got that New York Times box that pops up.
Right.
And it works. People click on it. It doesn't convert as well as a pop-up. I mean, let me tell you, the pop-ups are the best option. But I use the slide-in to promote other content, and then if I have a webinar coming up, I'll make that little slide up a link to my webinar page to send more traffic to the webinar page.
Gotcha.
You know, but I haven't tested putting the opt-in in the slide up yet.
Okay. Gotcha. Cool. So with your different calls to action in your sidebar, let's talk about sidebars for a second, because obviously that's one of the places that people want to put calls to action in their site. You know, and you talk about in the interview you did with Laura, you know, using different colors that step out of the color scheme, stuff that pops out. You know, how do you choose your colors for your calls to action, and is there some psychology, you know, behind that?
Yeah, so that's like actually another hot question that people ask me. They're always like, you know, Derek, you know, I hear red converts the best or blue converts the best, and it's not about the color. It's about where the color lives. You know, if you have a strictly purple web design, right? You have a purple background behind your blog, and then you've got a purple sidebar image. If you have a purple image, a purple link, it's not going to get as many clicks because it kind of blends in with everything else. Right. So when you're thinking about colors, if you want people to click on something, you want that color to stand out. You want that color to contrast with the rest of your design, right? So if you have a blue design, a red button will work. If you've got a green design, a purple button will work. You know what I mean? You want to contrast those colors. You kind of want to just look at the color wheel almost. See the color on one side of the color wheel. The color that contrasts it the most is the color that's going to stand out the most. So you can just pick the other side and make that your call to action color, and that could be something you could start testing. But don't simply listen to me and say, well, in my experience, you know, green converted the best. Right. But that might not be your experience because your design might not support green as converting the best. You know what I mean? Right.
So, I mean, really the only way is testing it and making sure that it does stand out, right?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
You don't want to, so that's another thing. Another people make mistakes where they'll make like their subheadings in their blog post red, and then their links will be red. And then you're sitting there thinking, like, I can't click the subheading. Why can I click the link? Right. You know, you never want to, you want to basically break it down to two different colors. You want to have colors that people can click and colors that people can't click. Right. You don't ever want to mix the two.
Gotcha. So on Social Triggers, you talk about, you know, font spacing, different font types and font spacing. And on the blog, you have pretty high line height, and the text is easy to read, right? Was that, by design, or did that just kind of happen?
That's on purpose. I mean, so I'm not going to claim to be a line height expert. That was actually done by Chris Pearson. He created something called the golden ratio as it applied to typography. Are you familiar with the golden ratio?
Yeah.
So it's all about how the golden ratio applies to typography, and he figured out a crazy formula. He's the math guy. I'm not a math guy. Figured out how to apply the golden ratio to setting type. And it just so happens that it looks great and it's easy to read. Now, the thing that I do on purpose is, you might notice I have extremely short paragraphs. And I have short paragraphs simply because people on the web really don't like to read big blocks of text. It's just the truth. I mean, I think about myself. I love the New Yorker. I read the New Yorker almost every week. Like, I have a subscription to it on my Kindle. I don't have the magazine, even though I kind of want to get the magazine, but I have a subscription. I love the New Yorker. I can't read their website. I can't do it. Their paragraphs are so huge, and even though I love the content, I just can't focus on such huge paragraphs. On the internet, people can't focus on huge blocks of text. And actually, in that study I talked about from Elizabeth Silence, they actually found that big blocks of text could actually trigger distrust. So it makes sense, You want to break up that text to small blocks of text, make it easy to read, make it sound bites, make it digestible. That way people can look at it, read, then stop reading, and then think, oh, wait a minute, let me read the next sentence. And before you know it, they just read the next sentence, 45 times, and they read the whole article.
Gotcha. So yeah, and also you talk about, on a full width page even, if you're using the full, 980 pixels of space for your text, it's too, the lines are too long, and you say you should cut it down to like around 600.
Yeah, so that 600 is an optimal reading width. When you have, that depends on the size of your font. Like if you have size 30 font, to 900 wide might be easier to read. It's all about characters per line, and there was a lot of research to back this up. They found that people preferred to read between 45 and like 55 characters per line. I wrote an article about it called "What's the Perfect Width for Online Content." I don't remember the exact ratio right now, but I believe it's between 45 and 55 characters per line is what people prefer the most. However, while they prefer between 45 and 55 characters per line, they actually read like 75 to 105 characters per line faster. What people want doesn't necessarily mean they could read and consume it faster, right? So what I do is, if you go to socialtriggers.com and you look at one of my blog posts, you'll see I have a half-width image at the top and then content to the left. That's done on purpose so I can truncate my line length. So I fall into the 45 characters per line for the first few sentences. Then I'm taking advantage of a proven direct marketing principle where they said that if you get people to read the first like 4 sentences of your copy, they'll read the whole thing. So my goal is to get people to read the first 4 sentences of my copy by giving them exactly what they want, the shorter line length, and then widening it up afterwards to the 75 or 105 characters per line after the fact. That way they can continue reading at a faster pace. Now, you said 600 pixels. It happens to be around 600 pixels or 550 pixels when you're using like a size 14 or size 15 font.
Right.
But in the end, it's all about the characters per line, and what font you use impacts how wide it should be, is what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's very easy to read, very easy to consume content, and I think that definitely helps, with, getting more people reading your blog, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just nerded out on characters per line. People watching this are probably thinking like, dude, this guy's
we did kind of go overboard there. But all right, so we'll change it up a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about social proofing, because it's another kind of proven mechanism, or maybe disproven in some cases, in helping conversion rates, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about social proofing, different types of it that companies can use?
Yeah, so social proof is very important. You want to demonstrate that you're credible to random people who don't know who you are. But you never want to put social proof in the way of a conversion. And as a good example, over at the DIY Themes blog, we had get free updates. Over 20-some-odd thousand people subscribed to us. Email form, email button. We tested this. We found that if we removed the social proof before the email sign-up form, it converted higher. Now that's interesting because that goes against common sense.
Right.
And I actually came to the idea that I believe that happened mainly because the social proof pushed the email sign-up form lower on the page so people couldn't see that email sign-up form, and I believe that's what impacted the conversions. So let's think about this for a second. Yes, social proof works, but you never want to put it in the way of a conversion, first thing. Second thing, what types of social proof works? Well, if you have anyone who says nice things about you, that's a quote. That's social proof. People like to see that. If you go to socialtriggers.com, I got a quote from Chris Brogan saying, I'm totally loving social triggers. You know, I put that there because I assume that people know who Chris Brogan is, and I assume that social proof will push them over the edge.
Right.
But notice on my site, I put it below the button, not above the button.
Gotcha. So what about displaying, you know, your Facebook fans or stuff, you know, something like that? I mean, have you tested any of that stuff out?
Yeah, so if you have a lot of Facebook fans, yes, I do believe that it can help conversions. I haven't tested it, but I think it can help. But just know that if you don't have a lot of Facebook fans, if you have 500 fans or 400 fans, and all your competitors have 20,000 fans, I believe that's what I would call negative social proof. And to put this in perspective, like think about a street cart, like one of those food carts on the street. There's one food cart on one corner, another food cart on the other corner. One food cart has 15 people online. The other food cart has no people online. Which food cart you going to go to?
Right.
I'm going to the one with people, right?
Yeah. No.
You know why? Because I think the other guy's got poison. So if you're in a business where everyone's got 10,000 fans and you only got 100, don't be the poison food cart, you know?
Right. So you shouldn't really display that until you kind of grow the numbers, right?
Exactly.
Gotcha. So what about you know, showing traditional press mentions or like as seen in, featured in? I mean, have you? Yeah. It looks like you have that on some of your site. Does that help?
Yeah, it does help. I mean, I'm not using it on my opt-in forms. I need to add it there. I want to test it, but demonstrating that you've been cited by big media publications it's huge. I mean, most people don't get cited by big media publications.
Right.
So if you can say that you were, that's an air of credibility. And even though getting cited, I'm not going to name any names, but you know, I had an interview go live with me in one of those big magazines and on their site, and I got no traffic from it. But guess what? The traffic didn't matter. I could say I was interviewed by this magazine. That's a lot cooler than the traffic that's going to say. You know, it sounds better, it sounds good, and that's an air of credibility.
Right.
So yes, those big media logos are great. I actually have logos on my About page where you can see some of the places I've been featured.
Cool. So let's see here. So what different psychology and marketing resources did you read up on, and what would you recommend to the people out there watching that want to learn more about this stuff?
Well, first thing, they should read Social Triggers because I'm a shameless self-promoter and my content is amazing. Second thing, though, if they're looking for some other content, I learned a lot of what I know through books. I read a ton of books. I mean, I think over the last few years, they're in the hundreds of books that I've read. And I don't just read them like entertainment. I'll read a book, then I'll sit back like, you know, like I'm a king and think about how I could apply what I just learned from that book to my business. A lot of people will read the book, finish the book, start a new book, finish the book, start a new book. They never take that time to reflect on how that book might be able to help them in their business. Right. So I read mostly books. Some of the best books that you can start reading, and I mean the best books, is some of the old books, which are like Ogilvy on Advertising. That's a great book about writing copy that sells. Another great book is Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. This is all about, I think that book was published in the early 60s. And that book essentially walks you through how to write copy that gets people to buy stuff. Right. And even if you're not selling anything, remember, even if you're not selling a product, you got to get people to buy into your ideas. So this book is really, it's gold. I think everyone in the world needs to read this book. Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. Another great book is Made to Stick by the Heath brothers. I love this book for one reason. Most people are bad communicators. And I hate to say it, but it's true. Most people are bad communicators. Made to Stick will improve your communication ability, you know, thousandfold. I guess I don't have data to back that up, but let me tell you, if you're bad at communicating, you read Made to Stick, you're a badass. You know, that's just what happens.
Gotcha. Cool.
So those are the 3 books I'd recommend.
Nice. So where can people find you online?
Well, they could find me on socialtriggers.com. And what they should do is when they go to socialtriggers.com, guess what I'm going to say? Sign up to my email list. The first email you're going to get from me on my email list, I'm going to ask you essentially, what are you struggling with? I want you to reply to that email and tell me what you're struggling with. The reason why I'm asking you this is because I actually log all these answers, and that's how I help come up with content ideas for Social Triggers. So if you have a question that you'd like me to cover on Social Triggers, best way to do it, go to socialtriggers.com, enter your email in, press get updates, reply to that first email, and bam, you might see your article go live.
Nice. That was actually one of my questions, but I felt like that fell more into like list building stuff. But I want to get you back on a future show, so yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Dude, thanks for having me. I hope I didn't nerd out too much on characters per line and made people fall asleep or something.
Yeah. Awesome.